If you care for a cat who is overweight, or maybe they just got the diagnosis of diabetes, I want you to hear something very important. While diet, exercise, and maybe medication from the veterinarian are critical parts of getting that cat's metabolic health back on track, you may be missing a fantastic addition to that protocol that can supercharge your results. That is acupressure. Not only is acupressure easy to learn and share with a cat, not only is it speedy to do, taking only about 3 to 5 minutes to do from start to finish, cats often love acupressure. So not only are you going to be getting results because acupressure is so effective, it's a way for you to spend time with that cat, to bond, and for you to really be a part of their progress. I'm Susan Tenney, and I have been teaching 5-element acupressure to animal professionals and dedicated caregivers across North America and Europe for over 30 years. And in this video, I'm going to share with you 3 points that can be part of a starting points protocol that can start your journey in using these points with the cats in your life. I'm going to show you how these points help with something we call the earth element and how that can really turn around the metabolic health for the cat. And not only that, I'm going to also share with you how to get a free PDF that will give you all of the details on how to implement this protocol. Because while we're going to be talking about the points and exactly what they do for the cat today during the video, there is a free PDF that we share in our Metabolic Resource Hub, and you can access it by going down into the description box and following the link to sign up for free. Totally free, no obligation. And once you have that PDF, you're going to see nice large pictures of where that point lies. You're going to get instructions on how to find it, as well as instructions on how to activate those points so that you can help that cat. So let's dive into it so you can start all of this today. So if you have been following along with all the videos in this metabolic playlist, you know that we have a metabolic framework that we've been covering about horses. But now it's time to apply those same principles toward a smaller and furrier package, the cats in our lives. Now, obese cats and cats with diabetes are everywhere. Yes, of course, they're in the vet clinics, but they're also in the shelters and on grooming tables and with bodywork clients and home pet caregivers. And many of these animals are not only obese, they are on their way or have already developed diabetes, because over 50% of the pets in North America are overweight. That's a staggering number. And these obese cats are 4 times more likely to develop diabetes than cats at a healthy weight. That should definitely be getting your attention, because 1 in an estimated 230 cats in the US has diabetes, and the numbers are rising. And we need to stop this, obviously. There's a lot of care that's involved with helping a cat that has the diabetes diagnosis, and believe me, if you can avoid that, you don't want to go down that route. But even if, as an animal professional, you don't specialize in working with cats, you'll absolutely be encountering them all the time. That's because maybe you work with dogs, but there are cats in the same household, or you work at a stable and there's cats there as well. So this video is giving you some insight and techniques that you can use for these obese cats that are everywhere, sprinkled throughout your environment. You may see them as that overweight indoor cat that is sleeping and sleeping and sleeping. They just don't have the levels of energy that they used to. You might have what we usually in the horse world would call an easy keeper. You know those cats. They are the ones that even if you limit their food intake, they either stay obese or maybe they're even kind of going in gaining weight fast. This might be a cat who used to be playful and active and feeling really good, but is now more lethargic. You can also get to that level where the cat might be showing those signs of diabetes when they have excessive thirst, excessive urination, or increased appetite. And it's as if they are starving, even though they are gaining weight, and it doesn't look good. And so if you are encountering these cats, you should understand that feline obesity and diabetes are not separate problems. Obesity is that first step. It's kind of the setup. And diabetes is the consequence if it sticks around for a while. It's kind of like someone who gets a human pre-diabetes status, and the doctor warns them that yes, this could lead to diabetes. It's time to take action now. But here's the good news. Unlike with dogs, which that diabetic situation is a little bit more complicated, and we'll be dealing with that in a future video very soon, with cats, this whole situation is actually usually pretty manageable. You can take on the proper care for these metabolic conditions, reduce the weight, and reduce their vulnerability to all of these conditions that kind of come as a result of the overweight, including the diabetes. And you can often turn around that diabetes diagnosis and put it into remission. This is such a wonderful thing. You have an opportunity, and acupressure can be a part of that because it helps us describe why it's occurred in the first place and what to do about it. Before we start talking about the classical East Asian medicine theory of the diabetes and obesity, which we'll get into in just a moment, we want to take a look at it first through the Western medical or conventional medical lens, because you need to understand what's happening here. So most people hear diabetes and they think of people. So that would be insulin injections and expensive and complicated situations. But for cats, that picture is often, but not always, incomplete because, like some people, not all people, this condition is reversible, especially if you catch it early, and especially if you're really doing the full protocol with great consistency. And this is where it's so important, of course, to have your veterinarian on board with all that you give as far as care to that cat. You absolutely need to have the vet as part of this protocol so that they are leading you in the right direction, they're doing the proper tests, etc. But as long as you get the permission from the vet, you could add in the acupressure to really boost that process of turning things around. Now, cats are obligate carnivores. They have to eat meat. They have to. That is part of how they are made. Their metabolism is designed for a high protein, low carbohydrate diet. You probably already know that. But of course, for many modern indoor cats, their diet is more grain-heavy kibble. They have a sedentary lifestyle, and everything puts that kind of natural status under stress. Now, obesity creates this fat tissue that's generating these inflammatory signals that actually impairs that insulin sensitivity. And if all of that just went over your head, don't worry about it. Just understand that when your cat or a cat in your care is gaining weight, it makes the body struggle. It gives it kind of obstacles to kind of the free flow of everything working correctly. But the good news is the key distinction between feline diabetes and canine diabetes, which we'll talk about in a later video, is that it tends to be a type 2 diabetic status or form, which means that if you get the insulin back in balance, if you get the weight back in balance, a lot of times for these cats, you can turn things around. The beta cells, which were so stressed in the pancreas and creating this whole situation, may have been dysfunctional, but they aren't necessarily destroyed. So you can return them to proper function. Now realize that the cats who are at most risk are neutered males that are over 6 years old, who are indoors, sedentary, and who are fed a high carbohydrate diet. So there's a lot of pieces in there that need adjustment, and a lot of that is going to be addressed by anything, any good vet that says this is what you need to be doing. So diet and exercise, etc. But in this window of opportunity, we can also take a look at what classical East Asian medicine has to tell us to see if they have additional ideas to speed our progress. Because if we can speed this along and get things back on track, that cat can feel great again. So we did that brief description of how conventional medicine or Western medicine sees these conditions, but let's take a quick little dip into how they are seen by classical East Asian medicine. We'll use slightly different terms, but actually they're describing a very similar process. Now, if you have watched the other videos in this playlist, and there's quite a few of them when we're talking about horses and other species with similar metabolic conditions, you would already know that it is the earth element that governs the transformation and transportation within the body. And what this essentially means is that the earth element is governing digestion and setting off the entire metabolism. So the earth element is taking that food that the cat is eating, whether it is a high carbohydrate meal or they're eating only what they're catching out in the barn, and it's turning that food into usable energy. It then distributes, the earth element is going to distribute that energy to every cell so that it can be used for all the various cell functions that we have, whether it's making the liver run or the brain or whatever system that we have going. Now, when that earth element is off, the process becomes inefficient and challenged, and that's when that whole metabolic system starts to struggle. Now, the earth element is characterized by what in this system is called dampness. But what is dampness? Dampness is actually a pathological metabolism that's within the body. It is characterized by weight gain, fluid retention, edema, slower metabolic rate, and poor carbohydrate processing. In fact, a lot of times diabetes is kind of given the name of being like carbohydrate intolerant. So this person or this animal is unable to process carbohydrates properly because the metabolism isn't working correctly. Now, the classical East Asian medicine term for when this transformation is failing and it's not working right is stagnation. And we can have this, this dampness, this climate that has a lot to do with fluid and this slow metabolic rate. All that stagnation begins to accumulate in the body. So that's when the body often is gaining weight. And it turns from that obesity into something that we call phlegm. Now, phlegm in this condition is different than what we talk like phlegm in the lungs. If you get congestion, it's a different kind of phlegm. Again, this is a different system. It's created thousands of years ago, so it's slightly different words and images that we use. But in this context, phlegm is this congealed dampness, this stickiness, this kludgy energy, this kludgy substance that's in the digestive system and the metabolism, and it's not working properly. It's kind of like having a coating on inside the tubes in an irrigation system. So things can't flow properly, things can't work properly because there's this sticky stuff kind of in the way. So understand that this entire metabolic process is this whole body, whole system process. So we're talking about the digestive system, but it's actually affecting the cells absolutely everywhere. And that's where the metabolism is coming to play. It's not just in the digestive tract. It's actually influencing how all of the cells throughout the entire body are working. And actually, for those of you that know about your 5-element theory, you know that it's not just the earth element that gets involved. The other 5 elements get involved as well. So, for instance, our students in our certification program are working on how to actually understand the more complex and nuanced understanding of this picture, which starts with the earth element. That's always the core of it, but it also sees how these other elements are playing a part too. And yes, we can get there if you really want to take a deep dive into understanding the theory. But all of these paths are going to start with working with the earth element because it's the one that deals with dampness, digestion, and the metabolism. So when we look at all of this and we understand that the earth element is at the root of what we want to kind of get back on track, then we know we have to address the function of that earth element through our acupressure. Now, there are lifestyle things that need to happen as well, but those are probably being covered by your veterinarian because they're changing the diet, they're changing maybe the exercise, maybe they're using medication, and those can be really effective at helping that earth element to have the best conditions possible. But the acupressure will be another way that you can help get that earth element so it is working at its absolute best. And that's what we're going to take a look at next. So yes, what we're doing now is starting to look at our starting points protocol. But before we do that, we have to kind of let you know where we're going with this. We're going to go over 3 points that give you real results, but just understand there are some guidelines. First of all, any cat who is pregnant, don't be doing this unless you know a little bit more what you're doing. Kind of leave that for someone who is really trained in acupressure and all of these kinds of techniques. And absolutely, it's the veterinarian who really needs to give the go-ahead on all of that. Because pregnant cats have other things going on that need to be addressed. It's kind of out of the scope for this video. But any other cat that you're dealing with, when the vet says yes, you can use these points. They're safe, they're simple, and they are effective. But beyond that, just understand that these are, again, our starting points protocol. They're a place to start if you haven't, advanced too much on your acupressure journey. These are points that are going to give you great first results and great first experience and help that cat to feel better. But again, like I said, remember there are ways to customize or tweak these protocols to a more individual animal that can make them even more effective. But you got to start somewhere, and this is the place to start. These points will almost always be a part of any cat's point protocol to get them back on track. We're going to be supporting that earth element function, the metabolism, and really working to get them feeling better, not just in the digestive system, but this will actually often have results that show up in their behavior and other aspects of their health as well. And remember, all of the points that I'm about to discuss there's a lot more information in that free PDF, so go down into the description box and sign up for that free PDF to come your way. It's not only the PDF for this video, you'll also have access to the entire resource hub that covers dogs and horses as well. So lots of information there, doesn't cost you a penny. You gotta go get it. Okay, the very first point in your starting points protocol is spleen 6. This is a point that we at Elemental Acupressure called deep harmony, because it really gives this harmonious flow of everything in the metabolism to a cat. That's why in this protocol, we like to call this point the foundation. It is the foundation upon which all of the other points are built. The protocol is centered around this point. Now, this point was also covered in other parts of the playlist, but we were more talking about horses in that situation. So we want to talk about how this point is so wonderful for cats as well. Now, this point is what's called the master point for digestion and metabolism. And what this means is of all of the 360 points on the left side of the body and the 360 points on the right side of the body, this is the absolute tippity top in the point for dealing with digestion and metabolism. Now, it does share this spot with a couple other points, some of which are in this protocol, but it is absolutely at that top level when you're wanting to deal with conditions or issues around digestion and metabolism. Spleen 6 is your friend. It transforms this climate of dampness that we were talking about just a little while ago. It is absolutely effective at working at that dampness in the context of carbohydrate metabolism and insulin resistance. These are all really in this very closely overlapping Venn diagram when we're talking about this theory. All of these conditions, this carbohydrate metabolism and the insulin resistance and the digestion, all of this has to do with this concept of dampness from the classical East Asian medicine. Now, the other thing about this point, and one of the reasons why it is so powerful, it is called a crossing point. It is the crossing point of the spleen and the liver and the kidney meridian or channel. So again, what does this mean? You can see behind me that there is this horse model that has all these lines going across the body. And these are called the meridians or energetic pathways that carry the energy of all of the organs just underneath the skin. And we don't need to get into all the details about that today. Again, a little bit out of the scope of this, but just understand that the liver and the kidney and the spleen are all involved in metabolism. The spleen is the most important. It's that earth element organ that we really need to focus on, but the kidney and the liver are often involved as kind of side parts of this whole process. So if you have this one point where these three meridians or channels are crossing, you actually get to influence in a beneficial way and create that deep harmony by just pressing this one point, spleen 6. By working on the point, because it's on the spleen channel, it's going to have the greatest effect on the spleen channel itself and dampness and digestion and metabolism, but it's also going to influence the kidney channel as well, and the kidney organ, which has a lot to do with vitality, especially for senior cats or cats who have been through real big trauma. Let's say you got a cat who is overweight and they're from the shelter. Maybe they've been through some trauma. Great point for this cat. Or if you have a cat that has pretty spicy attitude, those cats who deal with issues within the liver meridian and the liver organ in this system of 5-element acupressure, you'll see that those cats can be strong-minded, they can be a little conflict-based, and they can have very strong opinions about things. So if you're dealing with these subsets of issues, this one point is kind of covering all of it, all at one point. So you really get a 3-for-1 there. Super good. But the big reason that we're using this point is that it resolves dampness. It processes that backload of all this kind of kludgy energy that's in the system, this phlegm that we talked about. It tonifies the chi, meaning that energy in the body can flow more actively, in a more healthy way. And it also helps to distribute the chi, because you don't only want the chi to be strong, you want it to be able to move freely through the entire system, through all the extremities, through everything, through every cell of the body. And this point helps with that. So any animal, or person for that matter, who is on a road to metabolic wellness, spleen 6, which we also call deep harmony, is absolutely your foundation level point. Now we have 2 other points that are up next, and just know that they are going to support the effectiveness of using spleen 6. If the action of spleen 6 was as the foundation of this starting points protocol, this next one is what we might call the clarifier. So this is stomach 40, a point that at elemental acupressure we call abundant dew. And by the clarifier, what we mean is this point clears the system. So when you have this situation with this dampness that's kind of clogged and plugging up the pipes, as it were, this point is known for dealing with dampness, dealing with the congealed dampness that we call phlegm, which is kind of a more advanced degree of that dampness. This point is the influential point for dampness, or clearing dampness from the body. So this stomach 40 point, this abundant dew, is going to assist not only with the transformation and transportation of the entire digestion. It helps with kind of the breakdown of food and these things, because it is on the stomach meridian. It's on the stomach channel, and it will help that stomach work optimally as well as the entire GI tract. It makes all the organs work better. But its special sauce, shall we say, is dealing with these issues when you have this dampness present. It helps resolve or clarify the system of this dampness, which is fantastic. That way, anytime there's kind of this kludgy energy or even physical kind of backup, waste products, etc., in the system, it will help to resolve that. You can kind of think that whereas the foundation point was kind of like your vehicle for taking you toward metabolic health, so spleen 6 being the vehicle that you're driving toward your better health for that cat, this is very much like you've seen that vehicle, but you're giving it an incredible tune-up. You're making all the systems work better because it's gone in and clarified the system. And that way, when you go on your journey toward that better health, you're not only is your vehicle there for you, that's spleen 6, but stomach 40 has cleared the system and optimized its function. So in the obese cat, it's going to help with this accumulation of dampness and phlegm. And with that diabetic cat, it's going to really help to kind of boost the energetics of the system, so the system doesn't have to work so hard against that dampness as it's moving toward a remission state. And if we boosted the foundation of chi with spleen 6, this is clearing things, and we're getting ready to go and really move forward into an active state. And that is our next point. Okay, so far we have 2 points which got us in position, but now it's time to go. Our third point in our starting point protocol is stomach 36, which we call all systems go. And this point is your activator. And what this point does is takes all of the metabolic energy and it gives it an extra boost. It's one of the most influential points for jump-starting that organ function and that digestion and metabolism and getting it in the right direction, and also to help maintaining it once it's kind of kick-started. Now, this is the master point for the gastrointestinal tract, all aspects of digestion. It is hugely synergistic with spleen 6, that first point, what we call the foundation, because they have slightly different effects, but they are the perfect pair. Spleen 6 kind of goes down to the core and works at kind of a slower but really steady core level effect, whereas stomach 36 is kind of more working at the surface but really, really well. So you have the yin and the yang of these 2 points to work with both aspects, the deepest, slower level, as well as working on the energetics at the top level and everything in between. They're such a powerful combo. Now, stomach 36, which we call all systems go, really assists with getting all of the systems in the digestion going. They assist with the transformation of all of the food into foodstuffs, so they're going to make everything work better. It's also going to help with the transformation of that dampness we were talking about, especially in the context of carbohydrate metabolism and insulin resistance, which of course are a huge concern for a cat who is either obese and or diabetic. It resolves that dampness, and it really will kind of back up the effect of stomach 40, our last point. Now, the other thing that's interesting is the last 2 points. So stomach 40 and stomach 36 are also effective for reducing what in classical East Asian medicine we call heat. Now, it's not in the sense of like having a fever. We're talking about inflammation, because when all of these metabolic conditions are in process, like we're talking about, you often have a system that is beset by inflammation. It may actually make that cat move not as smoothly because the joints can even be inflamed, but it can also be on a cellular level as well. And both of these points, stomach 40, that point that kind of clarified everything, that got the system clear, as well as stomach 36, our activator that activates the energy in the entire system. Both of these points really reduce that inflammatory condition that we can see in these cats who are obese and or diabetic. So if we have this vehicle metaphor where the spleen 6 is that core level vehicle that is taking us toward better metabolic health, then stomach 40 is that point that really clarifies everything. It clears the system. Stomach 36 is like turning on the ignition, so you have the energy, you have that activation to go towards health. And in the obese cat, that is the point. These all three together are going to really get that cat moving in a better direction metabolically. And again, it's going to be happening in the context of you following dietary guidelines and exercise guidelines and, maybe medical diet protocols that your vet has, said you need to use these medications. But this is just going to be that boost and that support that helps all of those lifestyle changes do their job even better. And that way the cat's system can really now go in the road to recovery. So now that you have your 3 points in your starting points protocol, all you need to do is head down to that description box to get your PDF, totally free, that will tell you how to implement it all. But before you do, we have a couple of tips on your implementation. So remember that while that PDF is going to show you where those points are and how to activate them, there are going to be some cats who are not super thrilled with acupressure. It definitely happens. This may be that the points are uncomfortable for them, because often if the body is out of balance, the points can sometimes be a little sparky, especially in the first session or two. And although that usually gets better very, very fast, sometimes those cats will, have that response. So there is a way that we can also suggest that if you have one of those cats that isn't liking the acupressure, or if you have a cat that is a no-touch kind of a cat, maybe they've had some sort of trauma, maybe they're super, super sensitive, we do have techniques that are mentioned in the PDF that allow you to absolutely not even have to touch your cat. We call it no pressure acupressure, and it's just as effective. Even if it kind of twists the brain a little bit, it's very, very effective. So just understand, if you can touch your cat, you can give 3 to 5 minutes to these point approaches. You're going to really see how it supercharges those effects that you're getting from your vet. But if you can't touch the cat, no worries. We have solutions for that too. But before we close up today, I would like to tell you just a little bit about the science behind these points, so you know that this is not just me talking out of the air. There is actually really good science behind all of these points. So while I absolutely have over 30 years that can attest to the effectiveness of these points and these protocols, and thousands of students that are gathering similar results every single day, you may still want a little bit of scientific backing for understanding these protocols. Totally valid. And so if you wonder about that, you can say, like, are there controlled clinical trials that are specifically on point work for feline diabetes? That's a little limited, I'm afraid to say. There is a gap in veterinary research funding, but there's no gap in the plausibility. So there are some really intriguing studies that are sending us in that direction of putting that backing behind us. So there is one from 2007. I will put all of the citations into the PDF that shows that there is strong feline diabetes epidemiology that is confirming that obesity, insulin dysregulation, and systemic imbalance is a driver for these conditions. as well. In 2025, there was a meta-analysis in animal models, not for cats, but I believe they were rats in this one, that showed that point work significantly improves blood glucose, body weight, and lipid metabolism. So these are the kinds of studies that we want to have behind us. So even though there may not be enough research funding to really do the point work for these conditions, we have some really good things pointing us in the right direction. So again, I will put the citations in that PDF so you can go and do your own research. And of course, new studies are coming out every year. So there might be things by the time you see this video that, you know, we really have the full golden study that we're looking for. But just know that again, for over 30 years, not only myself, but this entire community has been using these points and these kinds of protocols, and we see the results. We know they work, and they can work for you as well. So here's what I want you to take away from this video. Feline obesity and diabetes are earth element conditions, and they are the result of a metabolic system that's struggling, one that we can support at a core level with these acupressure points. Because all of those lifestyle changes like dietary changes are critical and important, so are these approaches that change things, transform things down at the core level of that animal's physiology and energetics. And here's the extraordinary thing about the cats compared to the dogs, and that's with the right protocol and in place and followed early enough, remission of diabetes is genuinely on the table. It is a bit of a gift to you. It's an opportunity. And acupressure is one of the tools that really makes that change possible. So we covered 3 points, the foundation, the clarifier, and the activator, that help take that vehicle and that cleared out system activated right down the road toward better metabolic health. They are accessible, they are safe, and they are easy to do, and they're also very effective. So make sure that you get that PDF that's down in the description box so you can actually implement these points right away. Now, I really suggest that if you're liking this playlist, you stick around by subscribing to the playlist and to the channel, because we're going to have all sorts of additional content that's going to help flesh out this kind of introduction to this metabolic content for cats. We're also going to be covering dogs, and of course, if you've already been here, you've seen we've been covering horses already, but we have a lot more to say about the horses as well. So many things to come, and we would love to have you be a part of this community. We have so much to share for the animals in your lives, and I know you are going to put this into use so that they feel better, and you, of course, will feel better as well. So that's it for today from Elemental Acupressure. I can't wait to see you in the next video.